Well, let's stay in New South Wales because there's still questions swirling about who knew what when after a neo-Nazi rally at the state's Parliament House on the weekend. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns today explained that security teams for both state parliaments and his department knew about the rally but did not inform him or other MPs. The Premier says there was a communications breakdown.
I can say that the Secretary of the Premier's Department was unaware of the neo-Nazi rally. It's hard to take action on an issue that you don't know about.
New South Wales Police say they did receive an application to hold the protest but decided not to challenge it on legal grounds. The group of around 60 men dressed in black fatigues bearing the National Socialist Network insignia rallied for around 10 minutes and unfurled a banner that read, quote, "Abolish the Jewish lobby," end quote. Peter Wertheim is the co-CEO of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, and he joins us now. Peter Wertheim, welcome.
Hi, Sarah.
First of all, what do you make of what happened on the weekend?
Look, I have no way of knowing what actually went on within the police department. I take the Premier at his word, and the Commissioner. But I'd say it's a lot worse than just a failure of communication, a failure to pass on the information. I think there was a failure on the part of the police who did receive the application to understand fully what they were looking at and to take the necessary action to prevent the rally from going ahead. And they could have done it simply by applying to the Supreme Court, as they have done with other cases where they've made a decision to oppose an application.
Mm-hmm. In very recent history, in fact.
Indeed. And they had very good grounds to oppose it, in my view. I mean, I've had a good look at the Form 1, the application that they received, and it's quite clear that the people who made it were lying when they said that they weren't intending to promote hatred against any group, including Jewish people. I mean, anyone who knows anything about the Nazis knows that anti-Semitism is not just an incidental part of their history or ideology. It is absolutely central to the racial fetish, which is at the heart of their worldview. And I mean, it's scientific bunkum, of course, pseudo-scientific nonsense, but this is their ideology, and anti-Semitism is absolutely integral to it. So for them to say that they were just making a political point or and not seeking to promote hatred was not just disingenuous, it was an out-and-out lie. They should have been called on it, and that could have been done quite simply in the Supreme Court.
We had State Political Editor Alexandra Smith from the Sydney Morning Herald on about an hour ago, who suggested that perhaps there was a school of thought that said, well, let's let this protest go ahead because they haven't actually, we don't know if they're going to vilify anyone or not, but if we knock it back, that will create more publicity. It's better to just let them do their thing quietly. Do you see that view has any merit?
Well, that didn't work out too well, did it? I mean, it's achieved a blaze of publicity and it's made headlines around the world, and it's painted Australia in a particularly poor light because people overseas who don't know any better get the impression that we're a nation of racists, which we're not. So I don't agree with that particular take on it. I think where an application like that is made, it should be assessed on its merits and in accordance with the law. And there were ample grounds to do so in this, to challenge it in this case. And the failure to do so is frankly baffling. I mean, I heard various comments being made by the police commissioner that public safety issues were not in play here as they were with the proposed march on the Opera House. Well, I can't agree with that either. I mean, imagine if a group of people or an individual person wearing religious clothing, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh or otherwise, had walked past that group, or a coloured person or a group of coloured people, or any number of different groups that the Nazis hate, and there's a lot of them. How can you say that there's no public safety issue with a paramilitary style group like that standing in front of Parliament and imposing their presence on the rest of the public.
I want to ask you about the legislative powers that currently exist. So New South Wales actually passed laws earlier this year. In New South Wales now, it is a crime to intentionally incite hatred against people because of their race, which includes things like nationality or ethno-religious background. Premier Chris Minns has vowed to toughen current legislation governing hate speech and the right to protest. Do you think the existing laws should have given police enough room to take action once that banner was unfurled, or do we need tougher laws?
Well, let me make it very clear that the unfurling of the banner wasn't a surprise to the police, because the application, if you read it, actually says that they're going to be protesting in exactly the same way as their banner said, against the so-called Jewish lobby, meaning the Jewish community and Jewish organisations.
Do you think that's hate speech?
Absolutely. If it's singling out one group in the community on the basis of race or religion for not having the freedom to do what any other community can do, and that is to form organisations, group together, promote their point of view on any issue, local or foreign, within the law. Yes, I think it is hate speech to single out a group to say that they don't deserve the same freedoms as other people have.
So we have the power, but the police did not exercise that power when that banner was unfurled. Is that your understanding of the situation?
They didn't exercise their power when the application was put before them. They didn't exercise the power to move them on when the banner was unfurled. There were a number of opportunities they had there, and they just missed out on both because, well, I don't know why. Maybe it's just a deficiency in their understanding of what Nazism is, what the ideology is, what lies behind it, the history of it. I don't know how much training or education they get about those things, but certainly on any criteria, there were enough powers there to challenge it. Now, that's not to say that the existing law about incitement of hatred on the basis of race in New South Wales is a perfect law. It is not perfect. It does not operate as advertised, and it is in need of reform. And in fact, there has been an inquiry into that law by Justice John Sacker. My understanding is that his report was handed to the government last week. The government is considering it. It's to do with this particular section that you referred to, Section 93ZAA of the New South Wales Crimes Act. And we await the publication of that report with interest and the recommendations in it. But basically, the law does not operate as advertised. It's not just simply a law that prohibits promoting hatred against people on the basis of their race or ethnic background. There are a whole raft of other conditions and criteria that a prosecutor has to prove that have nothing to do with any of that, and which shouldn't be there. Because frankly, if somebody like this neo-Nazi group goes out into the public promoting hatred against a particular community or group based on their race, and it can be proved beyond reasonable doubt, that's a very high standard, but proved beyond reasonable doubt that they did so intentionally, knowingly, deliberately, with the purpose of inciting that hatred, then that should be an offence in and of itself. You shouldn't need to have to prove a whole bunch of other extraneous conditions, and this is something I'm hoping that the Justice Sacker report will look into.
Just finally and briefly, Peter Wertheim, the New South Wales Police Commissioner, Mal Lanyon, said that he was one of the people not informed that this neo-Nazi rally was going to take place. He's been in the top job since September. Is this communications error excuse good enough?
Look, I have the highest regard for the police and the job that they do. Generally, they're incredibly dedicated people who operate, for the most part, with great skill and do a job most of us wouldn't want to do. So I would not readily jump in and criticise anyone doing that job. But when things do go wrong, occasionally, they tend to go wrong spectacularly, and that seems to be what happened in this case.
Peter Wertheim, thank you for joining us.